Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. If you're watching this video, then you passed your P2 check ride, so congratulations on that. Also, if you are not currently in flight school and you're aspiring to come to flight school or you're on hold, that's phenomenal. Thank you for watching the videos. I just urge you guys to go back and watch the videos prior to this one. That way you know exactly the order flight school happens in. But if you did pass your P2 check ride, it's a big deal. Congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. You're moving on up to instruments, so congrats on that. I would like to talk to you guys about what basic instruments and advanced instruments is. So when you were flying in P1 and P2, you were flying off of what's called VFR, or Visual Flight Rules, meaning you fly based off of what you can visually see outside of the aircraft. Sure, you're looking at your airspeed and altitude and everything, but you're not really navigating off of radio frequencies or ground-based or space-based navigational aids. Everything is what you can visually see. So in order to do that, you have to have legal weather to fly. You always have to have legal weather, but in IFR, it's much more lenient as far as weather goes. You don't have to visually have contact with the ground. So when you were in P1 and P2, you were flying out of Cairns every day. The ceiling had to be at least 1,000 feet high, and you had to have 3 statute miles visibility in order to legally fly out of Cairns to go to the stage field every day. That's because you were flying on a VFR or VFR flight rules. Now, your minimums reduce drastically because you're an Army aviator. You now can take off of, once you're instrument qualified, believe it or not, AR 95-1 states that Army aviators who have logged less than 50 hours of weather time can take off with a 100-foot ceiling and a 1/4 statute mile visibility. So that doesn't mean you just blow off the local requirements of the airport, but it does mean that it just goes to show you, I want to put that out there just to show you that you can fly in some pretty crappy weather as an Army aviator once you have your instrument qualifications. And you'll learn all about that in BI and AI. I don't want to get too much into that. I'm not an instructor. I'm just coming to you guys with my experience and what I learned through the course, and just to prep you and give you guys foresight on what you're about to expect or what you're about to experience. So yeah, that's instruments. You're going to learn all about how to fly this helicopter from point A to point B by going up, disappearing into the clouds, navigating, not seeing anything on the ground, and pop out somewhere over an airport and land. That's pretty cool if you think about it. Especially knowing the fact that you probably had 0 flight experience 2 months ago. And now you're already stepping up your game and getting instrument qualified. So that's awesome, man. So I'm going to give you guys the breakdown just like I always do. So BI is 4 weeks long. It's 30 hours of simulator time with 0 aircraft time. So after that 4 weeks is up, you move directly into AI, and AI is 3 weeks long and 17.5 aircraft time, no simulator time. So BI, all simulator, AI, all aircraft. AI is so much fun. BI is cool because you're learning so much about all the systems and stuff. All the systems that you've been looking down at through P1 and P2, not knowing anything about them, you're now going to learn what those systems were trying to tell you when your IP was screaming at you to pay attention to what you needed to be paying attention to. So that's awesome. So you have 3 exams during BI and AI. So you're going to have the first exam is going to cover what's called Department of Defense FLIP, or DoD FLIP, as it's commonly referred to. So the DoD FLIP encompasses several books, which is going to be your general planning book, your FIH, your approach plates, your ELA, which is your, it's kind of like a sectional, but it's for instruments, and then your area planning. And you'll get those during a pubs draw before all of this starts. That's really what the first exam is on, is the DoD FLIP program. There are probably going to be some more. It's probably going to be a little more than that, but that's pretty much what it's focused on. And then the second exam is going to be instrument interpretation as well as planning. Now, again, you guys are going to go through flight school much later than me, so some of this stuff has changed, but I think it's safe to assume it's going to somewhat resemble what I experienced. So I just want you guys to view what I'm saying through that lens. So the second exam will be, it'll give you pictures of instruments, and it will say, hey, what's happening with this aircraft right here? Is it left of course? Is it right of course? Which direction is the wind blowing from? And then exam 3 will be a compilation of all of those exams together, or those 2 exams together. It'll be a comprehensive exam of those 2 exams combined. So those are the 3 exams. And then the final exam will happen in AI, which will be your weather week, they call it, and it's your super in-depth class on weather. And it's really a good class. Depends on the instructor. There's 2 weather instructors here, but I really enjoyed the weather class, and I learned a lot. It's a really good class. And then that's it. You move into BWS. Also, 2 check rides, one at the end of BI and one at the end of AI, just like every phase. And then you move into BWS, the fun stuff. So congrats on that. So I'm going to give you my story on BI. Every day during BI, you show up to Warrior Hall, and you go do daily questions, just like always. After daily questions, you then go into the simulator and you fly whatever your IP assigned you. So the way our IP did it is, in the very beginning, he'd be like, hey, we're going to practice instrument takeoffs tomorrow, also known as ITOs, instrument takeoffs, ITOs. So we would practice those, and then we would practice some basic stuff. And then he would start assigning us full routes. So he'd be like, hey, Rushing, I want you to plan a departure from Dothan off of the Hound 2 departure, and I want you to fly to Mariana. You're going to do the VOR Bravo missed approach, and then you're going to fly into Dothan on the Dothan 3-2, and you're going to do the ILS. And that was it. And then me and my stick buddy would switch out, and he'd fly his route. So you'd go home the night before, and you'd plan it all out. And you chair fly it, and then you show up the next day ready to fly it. So, yeah, I mean, BI is boring because you're in a simulator the whole time. But, again, you're learning a ton. The best advice I can give you for BI, really this goes for both, is chair fly your routes, rehearse what you're going to do from every step of the way, from literally sitting where you're parked in the aircraft, to listening to ATIS, to calling for your clearance, to going to the right part of the airfield, your ITO, your even the radio calls, like going from tower to approach control, and then approach control to the other agency, like anticipating everything, knowing when your fuel checks are gonna occur. So that's the best advice I can give you guys for instrument flight. Also, another thing that I want to mention too. So this is very important. In P2, in P1 and P2, everything is hand flown. You do everything hand flown. In BI and AI, everything will be done on either lower level autopilot or upper level autopilot. That's what they call it in the 72. So lower level, the easiest way I can explain it is it's basically attitude hold. So your cyclic has a trim switch on it, and you set the attitude you want to hold the heading and basically the attitude or speed you want, and then you adjust the collective like you always adjust the collective. And then once you set that cyclic in the position you want it to be in, everything else is done with a trim beeper. So it's almost kind of like a D-pad is the best way I can describe it. So you push the button, you set it on your instrument takeoff, and then if you beep the trim beeper back, it will, in a controlled manner, go back on the cyclic. It'll go aft on the cyclic. If you go forward, it'll go forward on the cyclic. If you go left, it'll go left on the cyclic, and right, it'll go right on the cyclic. And everything is controlled, just like that. And the reason why is because once you're in the clouds and you can't see anything, spatial disorientation is a major factor. You want to avoid hand flying if you can at all costs. Of course, as pilots, we practice for getting in unusual attitudes and recovering from them, and that all takes hand flying. But you want to always remain with your autopilot set, that where everything is controlled. You can manipulate everything the way you need to. And again, forgive me if I'm describing this kind of confusing. One, if you've never flown a Lakota, it can sound confusing. But two, I've already been through the Black Hawk course, so it's been quite a while since I've been back in a Lakota. So just forgive me if my terminology is a little off. But it's important for me to say that, so you're not hand flying it anymore. And then in AI, you'll use the upper modes. So you set everything, and then everything is done on dials. So it's none of this switch stuff. Everything is done on dials. You got full-blown autopilot then. The lower modes are what we would call pilot assist, meaning it's like your trim holds and stuff. And then the upper modes is actual full autopilot systems. So my BI evaluation, I'm going to get into that a little bit. Obviously the eval's done in the simulator. My route was from Cairns Army Airfield. I flew to Mariana. I did the VOR Bravo. If you're familiar with this area, I'm sure 90% of the people watching this video has done that approach. And then I went to Dothan and did the 3-2 ILS for my precision approach. So in the check ride, you have to do a non-precision and a precision approach. So my evaluation was pretty uneventful. I mean, it was standard. It wasn't incredible. I didn't get a freaking 95 on it or anything, but I didn't totally bomb it. The big takeaway for me is the IP that was grading me that day had a little bit of problems with my instrument takeoff. I thought he was kind of blowing things out of proportion, because like I was explaining to you guys earlier, when you do your ITO, you set your cyclic and then you do everything else with the beeper. And whenever I set my cyclic, I moved my hand to rest it on top of the cyclic, and I started beeping it using my finger, like my thumb like this. And he was like, whoa, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm turning right to intercept my course. And he's like, well, why is your hand placement's weird? You're going to get yourself in trouble with that hand placement. And of course, I'm on an evaluation. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, right. And I switched it back. Did he have a point? Sure, he had a point. But, I mean, take it for what it's worth. He docked me for that. Even though my route, my check ride went completely fine. But what can you do? Anyways, that was my BI evaluation. My AI evaluation. So AI is freaking awesome, guys. You're going to love it. So you're out of the sim. You're in the Lakota, and you're flying, zipping all over South Alabama, going up to Georgia, going down to Florida, going all over the place in this little Lakota. And it's a blast. You stop over in Andalusia, you go there for breakfast. They got some great biscuits and gravy. And if you're there in the afternoon, they have the best chicken tenders you'll ever eat. Troy, that's what we call stale popcorn. They got the stale popcorn and they charge you for it. Andalusia, all free. So just keep those things in mind. You go to Crestview. I want to say, is it Crestview? I think it's Crestview also has some good food as well. So, and once you get in and start flying in AI, you'll know all the good spots. So just keep that in mind. Unless you're like me and you have a freaking bodybuilder as a IP who hasn't had a carb since 05, and he's like, yo, we got to get gas and go. No one's eating. So then, in that case, you just get to smell the food as you go in and pay for gas. But still a great experience. So, my AI evaluation story, honestly, my AI check ride was probably my worst check ride in all of flight school. I didn't get really a horrible grade for it, but my IP... it's just really, it was unprofessional, to say the least. And it wasn't just me, my stick buddy definitely thought the same thing. But, so we did table talk just like every single check ride starts out as. And we go to the aircraft. So when you're doing an instrument flight plan, before you take off, you have to get a clearance. So, and you'll learn all about this. You have to get a clearance. So you call, Cairns has what's called a clearance delivery. For places that don't have a clearance delivery, like smaller airports, you'll just call ground control. But I called clearance delivery. So when you call there, you're requesting your clearance. And I've always been taught to give where I'm parked, ATIS information, and first request. So for instance, in this case, my first request was the Tri-County Bonifay RNAV, and we were doing missed approach. I don't have the runway number, but it was in Tri-County Bonifay. So that's a little small municipal airport. Call up clearance delivery, gave the radio call exactly how I've always done it. And the IP turns to me and he goes, why the hell did you give them where we're parked? Why the hell do they need to know that? And this is as, he says that as clearance delivery's calling me back and giving me my instructions for departure. And I catch it all. And I'm like, that's how I've always been taught. And he was like, dude, I don't know who taught you that. And again, this is a check ride. I mean, this is, for an IP to be saying that to you, you're already nervous and you're already rattled. For him to go, I don't know who taught you that. So anyways, you guys get what I'm trying to say. And then I looked in the back at my stick buddy. I'm like, Jeremy, weren't we taught that, or am I crazy? And he goes, yeah, we were taught that. We really were. Like, that's how we've always called it. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm going to talk to your IP after this, but I don't know. So that comment already kind of just, it obviously things aren't going great. So I was rattled from that. We take off, approaching the Tri-County's okay. He's talking the whole time. And I don't want to get into, I don't want it to seem like I'm complaining. The check ride went fine. I got to go for my check ride. But moral of the story is, if IPs are doing that, bring it up to them. Say, hey, can we talk about it in the after action review? That's a great time to bring it up. You can still be professional and do that. This is your check ride, man. The last thing you want to do is take off on a check ride and have a dickhead sitting in the left seat, which is going to happen pretty often. But just let them know, like, hey, let me think this through. You know what I mean? And be confident in yourself. You practice for this. You chair flight it 100 times. You don't need some type of variable like that jacking up your thoughts and stuff. So anyways, my best advice. And my advice doesn't change from BI. Chair fly your routes. Practice every single thing that's going to happen in your route. Literally, I would have a checklist like this on my knee board, and I'd literally have everything, like from get ATIS information, get clearance delivery, switch from clearance delivery to ground, ground to tower, tower to approach control, start fuel check. I literally would have all those items, and as I was doing it, check, 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 checking it off the whole time. So yeah, that's my story of BI and AI. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. You're gonna learn a lot in this phase, and it's really good. I had, even though BI is boring and in a simulator, you learn a lot, and the stuff that you're learning is very important. And then AI is a really fun phase, because finally you and your IP have been flying together for, almost 4 months at that point. So you've got some rapport with them. You're not a pilot that was born yesterday, or that started flying yesterday. It's an enjoyable phase, and they know it's their last phase with you. Literally, the day you leave AI, you go to another cadre. You go to Shell airfield, and you start flying with those cadre. So these cadre that have been teaching you literally everything since you started your flying career, they go and pick up new students. So this is their last time to fly with people that actually know what they're doing, and then they don't feel like they're going to get killed every single day. It's a really fun phase. Make the best of it and enjoy it. That's pretty much it. The next video will cover BWS, which is a great phase as well. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment. Thanks, guys.